You're listening to Chaos Public Radio.
Good evening once again, and welcome back to Gender Non-Conforming Chat. I'm your host, Mary Jane Blank, and today with me I have Theo Motzenbacker. What do you do, Theo?
Hey, I'm just really excited that you pronounced my name right.
Well, I've known you since high school, so
true.
I've known how to pronounce your name for half of my lifetime.
That's true. I think a lot of people have known me the same amount of time and still don't know how to say it. They just settled on something they could live with a while ago.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. That was
course.
cool.
I try.
I'm a theater director and producer. I'm a copywriter for a sex toy company called Fun Factory. And I'm an aspiring social worker. I'm in the middle of taking my last prerequisite so that I can go back to school.
Wow. Is that grad school?
That's gonna be grad school.
Damn. Well, yeah, that's quite a journey.
I'm scared.
I feel you. Weirdly relatable, but not for me. But yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna start with the first question that I would like to start with of, what is your gender? How would you describe your gender?
I don't know yet.
Okay. So then, what's your journey then? How have you gotten to where you are?
Yeah, I've been calling myself transmasculine, which I think is pretty covers it, at least for now. I don't know if there's going to be a place that I land other than that, but
okay, sure.
I don't know if it's the stepping stone to another thing, or if it's just I'm just going to be a transmasculine person for the rest of my life.
So do you see yourself as gender fluid, or yeah? So you feel pretty like that's a okay conclusion. You're like, oh, I can transmasculine for the rest of my life. Oh, that's fine.
It doesn't feel like that. It feels like I can live with that explanation for now. I'd love to have a word. I would love to have a sense of sureness.
Right.
I have a lot of inchoate desires.
For sure. No, and I think that's the nature of gender, is that it is this very complicated and individual thing that societal roles try to rigidly define it, but the reality is that each of us experiences it differently, and differently over time as well. And because I feel similarly as both a genderqueer woman, and so when I first came out I was genderqueer, and it took me time to come out as a woman and to accept being a woman on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's come around to the thing where my partner's I hear you referring yourself as genderqueer. I'm well, yeah, I'm both genderqueer and a woman simultaneously, and so it comes out as being me sort of androgynous. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, how do you relate to your gender? Is scary?
That was me freezing.
I got a deer in headlights look from them right there. That was a very dramatic moment. I'm regretting not having a camera this time because I don't have a good filming environment, but that was priceless.
I don't know. It's definitely feels like a work in progress. I think I'm anticipating a later question, but I only started kind of publicly transitioning a few months ago. So,
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So, was there sort of a process of realization that predated that?
Uh-huh.
And how many years did this take? Your lifetime up to that point?
It was every once in a while it would sort of come up, and I would just be like, that's nice. That's just a thing people want sometimes, and then I would just shunt it off to the side, and I'm very good at being a woman. I'm very really tapped into my woman community, and this is just another thing, and it's okay, and probably I just want good suits, and which I do.
Right.
Which I also do.
Right. So embracing masculinity itself is, and as it's detached from manhood, or even man and woman or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you see yourself. So do you identify as non-binary?
Yes, at least for now.
Okay.
I really like the term genderqueer, though. I was hearing you use it, and I was like, oh, that's I don't know.
Yeah, no.
It feels like it's got some flavor. It feels like it's not defining yourself as a negative, which I like.
Sure. Yeah, that's actually a good point too, because non-binary is so vague, but at the same time, yeah, it's only describing what it is not. Versus, yeah, genderqueer, where it's like, my gender is queer. You know, it's like, essentially, like, you can't make assumptions about, like, how I'm going to present my gender, really, is really a big factor of it, where I like to go between, like, what some people might consider sort of masculine, and definitely, if I were born in an earlier decade, I would not have even been able to transition, because I would be considered too masculine because I'm into, like, video games. It's like, oh, that's a masculine hobby.
Oh, yeah, God. Yeah.
That's the kind of shit they make you.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. I wasn't even thinking about that. Yes.
Yeah. So, so do you identify with any sort of trans community, or just sort of with the general, like...
I'm not sure yet. I'm sorry.
No worries. No, that's a valid answer. There's no wrong answers.
Yeah. I will say that, like, the trans community has been really lovely to me. And, like, I've been really, like, kind of touched and amazed by the way, like, I was like, oh, I have this new name now. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I'm terrified. And, like, all my trans friends from, like, every moment of my life came out of the woodwork and were like, we got you. Like, you okay? We got you.
Like, I understand. For sure. Yeah,
It's really remarkable.
Hell yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. No, so... This is, I don't feel judged by this question, because this is just something that I've noticed in my life and in general. Did you, like, meet a trans person that sort of made you realize, like, oh, this thing I've thought about is possible? Because that seems to be most people's experiences.
I have a really embarrassing story about this, actually. This was not, like, meeting my first trans person by any stretch.
Sure.
Like, I've, had friends who were trans for, like...
Right.
Like, many years. Many years.
Yes.
But, like, okay. I'm gonna say this, and I'm just really branding myself as a certain kind of child of the internet.
Sure.
But I went to see Danny Lavery Reed, who was at the time publishing under Mallory Ortberg.
Oh, okay.
And he co-founded The Toast. He used to write for The Hairpin. He's the current Dear Prudence on Slate.
Oh, okay.
And he wrote a book of like weird fairy tale spooky type stories. And I went to see him read at Skylight. And at the time, I think he was using they them pronouns, and like there was a really awkward thing, because I think he was like not. He was like his book had been published under like a name he like I think was just about to stop using.
Right.
And
oh god, yeah. And knowing a little bit about that. Yeah. For years dealing with that, I get it.
Oh god, and this woman at Skylight was like, this is really an event about like celebrating, like women writers getting together, just like being women together, being womanly. Like it like went on endlessly.
Oh my god. It's like
you could see like, and a lot of people in the crowd, I think, were people who also just like follow him on Twitter and like are aware of him as like an internet presence and get his weird newsletter, which I highly recommend. It's called the Shatner Chatner.
Oh, right. All right. A recommendation for the Shatner Chatner? Wonderful.
And so there was a lot of like discomfort, and he comes out. So this bookstore, Skylight Books, I'm sure you know it.
Sure.
Has this like staircase that goes up to the office, and the authors will sit in the office and then come down once they're ready to read. And he just like comes down the stairs and is so handsome. Mm-hmm. And I was like overcome with jealousy and anger.
Yes.
I was just like, how fucking dare you? Like that. Like, I want that so much. Fuck you.
For sure.
And then
for sure.
I was so mad about it, and I was so jealous, and then I just like walked around being like, ugh, like for a couple of days, and then was like, oh, I should do something about this maybe, and then like 2 years later, I kind of almost started to. Wow. It was probably about 3 years ago now.
For sure. No, what's so wild about it is like, again, being on different parts of the like trans spectrum and experience, the similarity of experiences is wild. Like not exactly the same, but like the same kind of revelation, the same kind of like moments. Like I've described a feeling, I'm not sure if you've had, called the fuck or be conundrum, where you see somebody and you're not sure if you want to be them or you want to fuck them, and especially when you're questioning your gender, you see some like hot masculine person with like makeup on, or a feminine person with like combat boots, and you're just like, what do I want? Do I want to be these people? Do I want to fuck these people? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so you relate to that?
Yes,
I do. And it's funny, too, because, like, it seems like this is part of a, sort of, like, a queer experience, like, sort of just part of being gender non-conforming in general, where, like, where you look up to these, like, different versions of, like, masculinity or femininity. Like, James Dean is an interesting example, because he's this icon of queer masculinity, yeah. And so he's really inspirational for butch women and queer men and bisexuals alike, you know?
Yeah.
What's not to love? I mean, he was great.
Yes. He's like a living Tom of Finland dude.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Sure. I don't know. Okay.
Maybe not. I said that, and then I don't think it's true.
Yeah.
Less buff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that was definitely part of his sort of charm, like, and appeal, is, like, he actually, it's like, the era he was cast into, because of how influential he is, I can see all the terrible movies he could have been in, like, if he was in the 90s or in the 80s, but, like, because he's in the 50s, he fits this role of being able to be, like, the lanky, but, like, pretty boy, but also super masculine, but, like, yeah, but he's also this, like, skinny pretty boy, and my favorite thing is, like, I think, I'm not sure, I feel like this is his touch in Rebel Without a Cause, for whatever reason. I feel like this is part of his thing, where he will zip up his jacket, he will zip it up and zip it down to a quarter every single time. And so he has his style completely down. And, like, that's definitely, like, probably a character choice on his part, but, like, come on, who else is gonna make that character choice, right? Like, thinking about that kind of detail. Because I noticed this as I watched the movie a couple times, like, he actively does it. Like, he'll zip it up and then zip it back down.
Oh my god, I haven't seen it since I was probably a teenager.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Probably do a rewatch.
Yeah, no, it's worth a rewatch, even though the queer-coded character dies, but, like, it's from the 50s, and the queer-coded character dies today.
They were, like, mandated to die then, and now they just die because that's the only story that we know.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, talking about that conundrum, so how do you think of, like, your sexuality?
I do identify as queer, and that predates any, like, really explicit gender stuff for me. Like, yeah, you know,
I remember.
You remember when I was a lesbian for a few years.
I do. I remember that.
And then I was
the irony of being at a cast party where, because I was always into you. And, like, we spent a lot of time because, we had a lot of similar kind of ideas and interests. And, you said, I'm too gay for you. And then, like, when I transitioned, the irony of being a trans lesbian now, which is, like, hilarious. It's like, if only we knew.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really funny.
That's really terrific.
No, yeah, that's one of those moments where I think back to it, and I remember thinking in my head, like, I'm like, that's wrong, but I have no idea why. You know, like, there are a lot of weird moments like that, like, thinking, like, I wish I was a woman, oh, well, too bad I can't, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of things, but yeah.
Yep.
Is there, like, a particular model that you think about sexuality, or are you kind of just okay with, like, however someone else defines it and being like, okay, I'm, like, in this part of the spectrum, or, like, whatever?
I would call myself bi.
Okay.
Yeah. I, like, you know, bi or pan, but I have just, like, an aesthetic objection to the word pansexual. I don't like it, so...
Sure. Yeah, and
I stick with bi.
Yeah, for sure. So do you feel like how do you feel about, so the labels gay and straight, like, so you haven't felt like these have applied to you for a long time, basically, right? You haven't really applied to that dichotomy, is that right? Because, like...
I don't know, I've been pretty, I guess I haven't been gay or straight for a long time.
Right.
I haven't necessarily felt for a long time, I didn't for a long time really, I think, let myself think about, you know, what are these gender longings
Right.
about? So
Yeah.
so it's just like, well, I'm just a bisexual lady. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just ask because a lot of non-binary folk, it's like for me, when I went through, because I like 5 months before my gender realization stuff, I went through like sexuality realization stuff, because I'm also kind of bi-pan. Like that's sort of where I see myself. Because basically, like, gender is just not really a factor with attraction. It's way too complicated for that. And so, yeah, especially once you put trans people in the mix, when you know, we were raised to, like, associate, like, our sexual attraction with genitals, and then, like, then I meet someone similar to myself, or like, transmasculine people, and it's like, well, wait a minute, like, I think, like, basically, any person you could want, any combination of, like, random facts, you can find that fucking person, and because of the internet, they've already been canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel like gender is a factor in my attraction. It's just like, you know, not a simple factor.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, this is the gender I'm attracted to, or like even these are the genders I'm attracted to. Just like, oh, your gender is like part of this whole package of stuff that I'm like very into.
Totally. Is there anything in particular that you would like to, like, discuss, gender-wise, culture-wise?
Ooh.
Because there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't know. Culture-wise. I'm just like, this whole thing, I've just like had my head in my ass for such a long time.
Sure.
Because it's just, you know, or like, I guess my navel, to be more polite. I'm just like, what does it mean? What does it mean about me?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, being real mean to myself and like finding all kinds of reasons why I'm making it up. And, you know.
I'm like, yes, I remember how society trained me to think about it too. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just, you know, I'm like, being queer has been a part of my identity for a long time. So for a while I was like kind of beating myself with the stick of like, well, you're marrying a cis dude now. So like, you're just trying to stay current. Like, you're just trying to stay visibly queer. Which is insane. Like,
yeah, no, it makes no sense. It's the same thing as, like, the transgender thing, where it's like, it doesn't benefit you to be gender non-conforming in our society. Like, cis or trans, like, if you go far enough out of the small box they want you in, yeah, it's like, it's not usually a fun time. Usually you need a lot of support for that reason. Like, that's why it, like, for me too, it took a lot of having partners that were really supportive. Like, with choosing my name as well, like, it was like I was thinking about it and they're like, oh, okay, that's your name, all right. And it's like, well, cool, all right.
Yeah.
Fuck.
No, if I was doing this for my own benefit, like, why do I feel so terrible so much of the time, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's such a good way to put it. It's like, if I'm thinking, oh god, yeah. Jeez. Yeah, so, strangely relatable story. So, one of my exes became a TERF, and right when gender critical became, like, a phrase, so she spent this night trying to convince me and, like, send me blogs of gender critical people, and that was the lowest point in my life I've ever hit, which is really wild. Yeah.
But, like, I'm so, do you mind if I ask you more?
Of course.
Like, what did she hope to achieve by this?
Nothing good.
Okay.
Like, short answer, nothing good. Long answer, so, like, what she claimed was, like, reconciliation or some kind of, like, basically she just had this belief that I was, like, fundamentally broken or flawed in some way, and kept trying to figure out what it was. So first it was avoidant personality disorder, and this is after we broke up. This is classic abuser, where she became more abusive. She was, like, I couldn't tell that she was abusive when we were together, but once we broke up, it was, like, crazily obvious, like, but anyway, capstone to that story, a few months later, called me to tell me to kill myself. So that was probably the point. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because that was the effect.
Oh,
wow. But I realized, this is a little wild, but yeah, I realized I wanted to live, and so, like, from that point on, it's just sort of, like, been a different, like, I just sort of see the world a little bit differently, and I've sort of, over time, it's to sort of like relate it to something a little more positive, like a Katamari ball, collecting more positive sort of things, and even though like accepting how bad the world is and how dark it is, and being able to appreciate the good, because like it's all bad and good constantly. So like you can never wait for it to not be bad. You know, there's never a quote unquote good time for anything. It is only now because there's just all bad and all good. Yeah.
That is very wise.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I mean it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I put a lot of points into wisdom last time I leveled up. When I took my ability score improvement.
Hell yeah.
Oh, so that actually leads me to an interesting question. Again, for something lighter too. Do you play D&D?
I do.
So, I find D&D pretty cool and very like freeing, both as a trans person but also as a writer. You know, like it's actually like a really good writing exercise. Like, do you feel like you've used D&D to sort of explore some of those spaces, or is it just sort of a creative space to have fun?
More of the second one, I think.
Yeah.
That I've played both, like, you know, sort of male and female characters. I have like a gender non-conforming character that like built for a campaign that never happened.
Oh,
that
sure.
was just like that's just like sitting in reserve now.
Yeah. Don't we all?
They'll get their day.
Right.
I think it's gonna be fun if it ever happens. My friend was writing like a heist campaign.
Oh, nice.
Which heists are the best.
Right.
But yeah, I think I like resisted it for a long time because I tried playing like one tabletop game in college and it was like just too much for me. I was like, this is embarrassing and I'm out of my depth and like I feel like awkward and put on the spot.
Yeah, same. It's so weird how we can perform, like you and I performed on stage literally together.
Yes.
Actually. Yet, like, I felt the same way about it, where it's like, for some reason in this context where it's like really personal, it's like, oh no, in front of 100 strangers, sure.
Yeah.
But in front of my close friends, I don't know about that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So what changed?
I think I aged out of a certain amount of shame, which is really nice.
Definitely.
I think I cracked 30 and was like, oh, nothing matters.
Right.
But in a good way.
No, absolutely.
Like, who gives a shit?
Absolutely. Yeah. Was there anything in particular that like got you into it, or it was just sort of the shame sort of left and you're like, this is maybe I should reconsider.
I'd been thinking about it for a bit as something I'd like to try, and it just felt like so much work. Yeah. And then I started dating my now fiance a few years ago and got like adopted into this really wonderful little group. So,
awesome. Yeah.
There's really folks cool. who are now like some of my closest friends, which is great.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone there is real funny and just like really laid back. Mm-hmm. And I was not feeling pressure to like get it right.
Right.
Yeah. So it just ended up being really fun, and it was really fun. It's like, it was interesting to hear you say like, oh, it's fun for you as a writer, like freeing for you as a writer, because I do feel like it's freeing for me as a director, where I spend so much time trying to like create a product, and like that product has to be consistent, and it has to like have an emotional arc, and it's gotta like, the ending's gotta land, and like there's so much like intricate stuff that goes into it. You have to see the big picture, and you have to see the details, and then like this is just like fucking around as a gnome.
Yeah. No, exactly. Where like you have like sometimes you get stuff that you like feels is like very engaging and incredibly fun, and it's just this emergent process where like I have this habit of taking notes when I do D&D and writing down memorable quotes, both in character and out sometimes, just because like sometimes it's just too funny, and it's like always nice to have that little memory. As well. Like, I really did end up coming at it kind of more, like, as a writer, so, I like, kind of chronicle, like, the adventures a little bit. I like to give them, like, episode titles, just for the fun of it, but usually after I know, like, how it went down, Yeah, no, it's really cool. What I realized about it was, like, because I started watching D&D videos online right when I started writing for stage again, and like, I noticed, I was watching this guy, Matt Colville, do videos about D&D, and I realized that, like, all these, like, Dungeon Master tips and character creation tips are all just writing tips, but, like, geared toward D&D, like, for specific D&D play. Like, a guy gave a list of, this is another one, I don't remember his name, unfortunately, but, a list of, like, things your character needs to have to fill them out. And I actually still think about it, you know, it's like, you know, what happened to their parents? Like, just like, what are their parents about? You know, things like that. Like, just a sort of basic, like, where are they from? You know, what was their parents, like, one sentence description of their life, you know? And yeah, it's just really fascinating. And, but for me, so another thing, so I got into it as well from Adventurers League. So I got into it from playing with, like, strangers.
Oh, cool.
And, yeah, playing in very different groups. Yeah, I had, like, a group once where everyone was close friends with each other, and they were all Dungeon Masters, which was really wild. But, yeah, I found... so I created a character for Adventurers League, and basically, like... you know, I'm usually very pessimistic and, like, cynical kind of person, and very dark, and so I created a character who is, like... She's faced with, like... you know, incredible violence and dangerous magic, and she's just like, what happens if I eat a monster? And she's just, like, the happiest, like, she, like, has a joie de vivre. Like, I was having a really bad week once, and, one of the women who runs the event, she comes over, and she's like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, like, playing a character with some joie de vivre is really good. Mm. You know, it's just, like, being able to, just how it can be, like, serve this sort of interesting therapeutic function.
Yeah.
You know?
It is sort of a nice break from worrying how people see you.
Yeah.
Like, which I think didn't used to be so much a thing for me for a long time. And since I was, like, because I cared a lot less.
Sure.
So now I'm like, oh, I actually, like, there are ways that I want to be seen. There are, like... you know, there are ways that I want to be read that feel really important to me, and now it's a thing that stresses me out, whereas before I'm just like, whatever, I'm a person, I look like a person, like, you got a problem with it, I don't give a shit, like...
Fucking relatable. So relatable. Like, yeah, and it's weird how, like, it's like this weird moment where it's like, accepting yourself and then becoming anxious about how you're perceived. It's like it clicks a switch where it's just like, oh, okay, now I'm, like, terrified of certain social situations.
Yeah.
You know, gendered social situations. I, like, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really like, again, really wild how we can, like, relate despite, you know, all these differences.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure... you might have had similar experiences like I've had. I've definitely had experiences where, like, I wore skirts before taking hormones where, like, you know, people wouldn't say something because we're in California, but, like, there'd be, like, a look or, like, they'd avoid talking to me. Like, a friend of mine noticed that. And she's like, well, it's weird because I live here. It's like, I've never been discriminated against for my gender, but I think you just were. I'm like, well, because I had, like, pink hair, and again, I was not on hormones, so, like, I was perceived as a man with pink hair, which is kind of wild to me, because, like, if I dressed in a certain way, I was perceived as a woman completely, and, like, it had that weird thing where, I don't know what it is exactly, where, like, you perform a certain kind of femininity, and suddenly, like, guys especially, but, like, kind of everybody is kind of, like, immediately noticing you in a weird way. It's like, like a vulnerability to maybe. I've noticed that as well, you know. Some people sort of, like, seek out vulnerability, and it's really wild. So I assume the answer to this, but has the change of your, like, gender performance and gender expression, affected, like, the work you do at all, or, like, changed, like, those kind of relationships, or is it sort of the kind of spaces where people kind of get it, or at least are willing to learn?
I am so lucky in my workplace. My boss is queer, and cool. Like really sets the tone for, like, the whole department. You know what? And
following on Instagram, that makes a lot of sense. Actually,
yeah. So it was already an office space with an explicit, like, you know, page in the employee handbook about, like, not misgendering people and about, like, respecting people's presentations. And I think I was still kind of an experiment for them, like, but sure. Like, you know, a little, okay, like, oh, we're doing this, like, this is happening in real time. Sure. But people have been great. It's been so easy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, that's awesome. Again, because, like, the internal struggle, it takes years. Like, it takes so long to, like, get over it.
Yeah.
Like, it literally took me 3 years between coming out as genderqueer and like, being able to accept being a woman, you know? Like, it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, start doing, like, hormones and stuff. And it's weird, too, like, do you feel like imposter syndrome sort of has, like, held you back before, or, like,
yes.
now, too? Yeah, like, you sort of feel that?
Yeah. I mean, I still feel it. Like, I feel it regularly.
For sure. But,
and
like...
even as it sort of feels more natural to be like, yes, I'm, like, trans, and I'm, you know... like a transmasculine person. Here's how I am. My name is Theo now. Like,
right.
There's still times when I'm just like, huh, like,
right. It's like, for whatever reason, that thought, right, that it all could be fake, or all could be my imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again is one of those things that, like, where talking to more people has helped me as well, where I realized things I thought were universal as a kid are, because I'm trans, most men do not hit their penises. I think that the popularity of the dick pic proves this. And so that was not normal. It's definitely like, oh, okay, that's bottom story. I got it.
I had a similar experience when I was young, coming out as at that point gay. That I would, like, knew I wanted to kiss girls a lot, and also it is, like, very surprising how many, like, resources, like, you know, teen magazines or whatever, like, things aimed at young women are like, and it's normal to be attracted to your friends. That's just, like, what straight girls do sometimes. It's just a normal part of puberty. And, like, maybe it is. I don't know.
Interesting.
I was queer. Like,
yeah. No, you don't want any comparison.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, for such a long time, I was like, you know, I did come out, like, relatively young, but, like, you know, that still meant there were a good, like, 2-3 years beforehand where I was like, oh, this is just a way that people feel. This is just, like, not worth worrying about. Definitely straight.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really fascinating. Yeah.
It's so weird.
It is really weird. Yeah, and it's so weird. It's so, like, it sucks to think about, too, because, like, it's just, like, ignorance is probably why, but it reinforces, like, societal norms so well. It's like, I don't want to conspiracize, but it still feels that way, you know, just because when everyone's saying the same kind of thing. Yeah, and, like, ultimately that's what it's about. It sort of goes into how, like, bisexuals are erased in a way where it's like, oh, you know, everyone goes through kissing boys or girls phase or whatever. But, yeah, no. For some people, that's that phase is their life.
Yeah.
Their lifespan.
And even, you know, I definitely run in, like, a real specific crowd.
Sure.
You know, if apart from anything else, like, apart from sort of my own identities, I do theater and, you know, I work in the sex toy industry. And those attract, like...
Yes.
Like, I think a queer crowd and a less gender-conforming crowd. But, like, I feel like I know, like, 2 women who identify as straight. At this point. Like, you know, the folks who, like, you know, are not going... Even though a lot of the folks who aren't going out of their way to, like, be a part of queer spaces or anything like that are just like, oh, yeah, but I'm bi, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I just
like,
feel like
attracted.
you know, not everybody's bi, but, like, a lot more people are bi than we were told.
No, exactly. This is another reason I believe the whole gender sexuality thing, like, sexuality based on gender, is totally a lie, because, like, most people you'll find are attracted. There are cases of, like, men a straight man will be attracted to, or women a straight woman will be attracted to, and non-binary people fucking ruin a straight person. And, like, I don't know how they perceive. Like, that was how I came to, like, identifying with, like, pansexuality and bisexuality myself, was like, what does gay and straight mean to me when it's based on a gender binary that I'm not on?
Yeah.
You know? And it's kind of cool. So interestingly, you already came out as queer, like, in middle school, so you never dated...
Early high school.
Okay.
I think freshman year, end of freshman year.
Okay, wow.
Oh my god.
Because it was the whole time I knew you, and I'm a year younger, so yeah.
Yeah, it would have been... I, like, hung out at the GSA my whole freshman year, because Vanessa was there.
Of course. Of course.
And then I came out to her... I feel like you will appreciate this. Sitting on, God, I don't remember whose house we were at. Somebody's hammock at the, not hammock, trampoline, those big old trampolines. at the cast party after first year project.
After first year project, amazing! Oh my god, I couldn't write it if I tried. It's so good.
Very iconic little
Absolutely.
high school moment.
Especially like our specific school too. So we went to this like arts high school where someone joked about that our theme song should be "I'm Coming Out," and every year that passes, it becomes more and more true.
Yep.
I don't know a straight person who went to our high school. Or, like, I guess they exist, but like
I do, but
but I know just as many people who are trans and queer as well. It's really great.
Yeah. And then obviously she and I dated for like the rest of high school.
Yeah. Definitely. Voted. I don't remember if you voted cutest couple or not, but I just want that on the record.
Oh.
That it was the case.
Yeah. We were not, and it was like a weird scandal.
Yeah, I remember.
A friend of ours was on yearbook, and apparently some votes had come in like after she left, so she thought that the teacher had like doctored the vote.
Right. Oh, okay.
I don't think that really happened.
Oh, okay.
But like,
yeah, because I never heard any like corroborated. It kind of went as far as that, and it's one of those things where it's like it was plausible enough that I'm like, okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense.
Apparently she'd said something homophobic in the past, so who knows? Maybe, but also, I, even at the time, I was like, please don't put me in the middle of this.
Sure. You know, that, okay.
I don't want to be in the middle of the cutest couple scandal.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Oh, God. Cute Couplegate 2006.
Yeah.
Terrible. No, so interestingly, you bring up an interesting point about how, like, queer people and trans people, like, we are, like, politicized. Just our experience is politicized in a way. Yeah, so you feel like, it's like how people who are anti-trans, especially in like the UK, are talking about it right now about like trans. Yeah. So they these like gender critical people like treat all trans people as though they are activists, and as though like just being a trans person makes you an activist. You know what I mean? like it's wild because like all we're doing is living our lives. You know, like going to school, going to work. Making podcasts, like every millennial. I'm living up to my generation.
I mean, to be fair, all trans people are anarcho-socialists. I'm kidding.
Hey, I'm an anarcho-socialist, so you got me. Hey, absolutely. So, hey. And then, I'm gonna describe what I'm doing right now, showing my copy of Capital, all 3 volumes with a giant communist symbol on the front, of course.
Sick.
Yeah.
But you know, hashtag not all trans people.
Yes, not all trans people. I'm sure some of them are communists too. You know, obviously, all the ML trans people as well. You know, whatever, they exist. Marxist, Leninist trans people aren't real.
But no, I do hear what you're saying. Like, jokes aside. Yeah. No, It's a thing that I am not currently experiencing, I think, just because, like, most of my friends are queer now.
Yeah.
And also, like, so is my boss, and so are, like, a bunch of the people that I work with, and, like, I feel like I'm in a very safe, like, little cushion now.
Yeah.
But, definitely, like, in high school, I remember feeling like a mascot a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
Like, there was one point where a friend introduced me to a stranger as, like, this is Kate, she's a lesbian. And
right.
I was like, really?
That's it? That's the intro I got? I was in the Seagull. I was in the motherfucking... I don't remember what else, I'm sorry. I just remember we were in together.
Reasonable. What a really funny show to do with high school.
Yes, it is so crazy to do Chekhov and Shakespeare in high school. Even for an arts high school, it's still, like, a little ambitious, y'all.
Yeah. Especially that one where it's just, like, middle-aged folks, like, looking back on their lost innocence.
Right, yeah.
It's like, 16.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what one of my college actually did, a college production of Death of a Salesman. You know, same kind of vibe. Where, like, they kind of try to turn it on its head a little bit to, like, intellectualize a little more. Like, I believe they cast a woman as Willie Loman. But it's still, like, 18 to 25-year-olds playing the characters, you know?
Yeah.
Ultimately. It's pretty funny, pretty wild. God.
We had such a singular experience.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, speaking of that, so that's something I've really appreciated, especially like having to consider possibly leaving California like in the next decade at some point. That like California is unique not only in the United States as being like a very trans-friendly place, but in the world. Like countries I did not really realize had like transphobic like kind of laws and stuff like still do. Like as I made a comment about like forced sterilization, because we don't do that, I believe, in the United States at all anymore, but like in Sweden, which I did not expect, it was only like 2012 or 13 when they repealed it.
What?
You know, and I'm assuming like a lot of your might be kind of similar, where there's like might be laws in the books, but like we're such a small part of the population that like part of it is like we are kind of have to be politicized, like in England again, like England is such a small place, and trans people are usually make about like 1% of the population, so it's like not that many literal people, so like they do have to like politicize our lives to be able to make shit about it, because like ultimately ultimately it's like we're just a bunch of regular ass folk, you know. It's like the Harvey Milk thing. It's like we're just kind of a bunch of normal people. Your postman could be trans, you know. You would never know.
Yeah. Gosh, I have UK dual citizenship, and I sort of had it in my back pocket as like, well, if things get real bad, I can always go to the UK. And now I'm like looking at the UK, like.
No, exactly. It's like the big gender critical thing, and like this thing.
And also
that,
just, you know.
Yeah, the
there's
UK.
Such a mess right now.
Yes, no, in general, a big mess. Around trans people, also a big mess.
Such mess.
Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And like in the next few years, they might not be any better than here. If they have the same healthcare, it's like, well, they're tanked. You know, it's like they're just like us. Like they're gonna have a billionaire buy their way to an election. This podcast endorses Bernie Sanders, by the way. In case you need that context.
She's not going to win at this point, but I really like Elizabeth Warren.
I do too. You know, I'm not with all the other online leftist folks. I actually I like Elizabeth Warren. I think like she'd be fine. You know, she's perfectly good. And like again, at the beginning when how they're framed as like more moderate candidates and they're like the more progressive ones, like it's still true. You know,
it's really true.
Like
their policy goals are like extremely similar, and their methods are different enough that it makes a difference.
Yeah, but the fact too that they like, what I find wild is how like they weren't always like a coalition from the beginning, because like they worked together in Congress to get shit done, and now they have to work against each other, and it's really bad. For everybody. This is the worst year ever. It's
not great.
It's not.
And it seemed so promising. I was like, oh, we have so many wonderful candidates going in. Like, what, we have a wealth of choices, and I just it just gets sadder and sadder.
Just worse by the day. Exactly.
Just more billionaires somehow.
Yeah, somehow. Another billionaire. By the time this goes out, Jeff Bezos will have announced his candidacy. He bought the moon. Somehow, no one owned it, but he bought it. Don't know how it happened. No, I even came up with an idea, so I write science fiction a lot, where in the future, America's renamed to Bezoa. You know? It's like, because I did the math on his net worth, and it's more than like, it's more than some U.S. states. It's more than some countries. So, like, he could probably buy Nicaragua. Like, he makes so much money that, like, he makes, like, 10 times... He has 10 times the amount of money Nicaragua makes in a year. So, like, he could essentially buy them for, like, 3 or 4 years. Just the entire country. Just have a country. It sucks. It's terrible.
I hate this.
Yeah, I want them to tax his hundreds of billions of dollars. Jeff Bezos, give up the money. Give up the capitalist lifestyle. You still have a chance. Well, before it's too late.
I feel like sometimes these things, fantasies are still fun, but I feel like, you know, my friends and I used to have a lot more conversations about, like, oh, if you were a billionaire, like, what would you do with all your money? And it would be this kind of fun fantasy. And now it's just, they end up going. I had this conversation the other day where my friend is like, I was trying to think of it, and I would never be a billionaire. Could never be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Like, you have to not be a good person in order to be a billionaire. And I was like, yeah, no, that's...
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Essentially. That's the big through line that connects all of them. Even what really sucks is, like, there's some people who have been, like, billionaire grifters, and, like, so what they end up with, similar to, like, the financial crisis crash, like, this guy creates this terrible company that was never good at what it did, and he walks away with $1.4 billion after selling it. And it's like, that's the punishment he gets at the end of all of his crimes. It's like, God, I hate that. Jeez.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Taxation and forced work.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I'm just
Right,
taking you to the end of the line.
Sure. No, yeah, there are a lot of possibilities. There.
These are my fantasies now.
Exactly. Yeah. That's my fantasy. I want to live in a world without billionaires. That's my fantasy. That's why I single out Jeff Bezos, because it's just like you say, like, because it takes a lot of really shitty things, like exploitation and stuff like that, to become a billionaire. To become the number one billionaire in the world probably makes you the worst.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's all really sad.
Oh, man. Let's not talk about
I know.
the American political system
I
anymore.
know. It's hard not to, but yes.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
constant.
everywhere, and it's, yeah.
But, like, yeah, I agree, too. It's like,
Yeah.
again, D&D's perfect for this, too, where you need to escape the world, and it's just like, let me go to Faerun or wherever, you know? It's like, let me just go somewhere else for a while. You know, let me be a character that indiscriminately murders people, and still I can call myself neutral good. You know,
Yes.
it's like...
Yep.
Basically. It's fine. The gods don't care. The gods have their own agenda.
Just like a lot of these creatures are just like categorically evil, so
Yeah.
there's no complexity. You don't have to worry about consequences.
No, yeah, exactly. When you see a nine-eyed beholder coming at you, it's
Right.
not like, I wonder what this floating eyeball man has to say to me. It's like, no, it's like disintegration beam over here, kill beam over there.
Yeah.
You
There are
know?
no good beholders.
Huh?
There are no good beholders.
Yeah,
There are no,
exactly.
Yeah. You're not like, what circumstances have led this beholder to,
Yes,
to this
to want to
life?
be good. Yeah, exactly. This power-hungry creature from an unknowable dimension. What has caused them to feel like good things for us? I like that in D&D, how there's a lot of those, like, have you heard of, like, the Aboleth creature?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, basically it's this, like, demon creature that in the lore of the official lore of D&D, like, they predate the creation of the world and are, like, part of the, like, primordial thing, and then the world is created sort of, and they kind of just sort of sink in around it, and they're, like, psychic, and usually evil as well, but very interesting circumstances where they might not be, where they kind of go both ways. But yeah, basically there's like a scary fish monster that's more powerful than most other things you meet. But like, yeah, just sort of, I just like the idea of those like enduring, it's a good fantasy. Like the idea that things could endure for thousands of years. You know, in reality, it's not the case. And in the age that we live in now, it feels like, it feels like everything's disposable, right? Like everything is now commodified to a point where, like, it's nice to think about like, yeah, like, D&D is a great one for this, too. It's, like, it's nice to think about, like, I could, like, build a castle, and in my mind, it can exist forever, you know? And, like, even in the world of, like, my character that might not, but, like, the characters in the game I've played, with the people I met at Adventurers League, like, we kind of built a town, and we kind of, like, built up this town, so, like, yeah, it's kind of nice thinking about my little, like, house with, like, you know, different things from our adventures in there, and then, another player has a brewery, another player has a bar. That's a fighting pit, also, of course. And, like, we're heroes of the town because we've saved them, because, like, we showed up and we're the only people more powerful than anything, as well. And, yeah, and my character's an assassin, the head of the Assassin's Guild. It's just, like, just the most... Like, D&D is just great for any fantasy. Like, power fantasies, just any fantasy, like... especially if you want to be a nomad, that's a pretty common factor. But if you want to be an orphaned nomad... It's your game.
Yeah. I'm just remembering the last campaign I played. It's been a minute.
Nice.
It's been like a few months now, because going back to school is really hard.
Yeah. Right.
Especially when you also have a job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I took statistics.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What?
I got an A in statistics.
Wow.
I know.
Brag.
I'm gonna brag shamelessly because I thought I would fail it, because I, got through math in high school by the last time I took a math class.
Yeah, I'm like, have you done math in a decade?
Just like, and no.
Yeah.
And like, they would be like, well, it's an art school. Why don't you sing us a song about math? And so...
Oh my god.
So I was like, well, I don't get extra credit, like, just write a play about math. So I'm gonna have to just do it. And I spent a lot of hours every week doing it.
Wow.
Now I kind of understand it.
That's really cool, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I haven't been that kind of person, but I now have someone in my life who encourages everyone to go to grad school, so, I'm proud of you. Yeah. Because she's an academic, and so I can really relate, where, like, we see each other, like, twice a month, because it's just, like, and we spent, last time we hung out, most of it, we're, like, working and studying for that exact reason, where it's, like, because you have to have a job, you have to just be able to afford the school in the first place.
Yeah. No, I really resisted going to grad school for a long time, and now that I'm doing this career change, I'm like, well, I want to get licensed, and like the way to do that is to get a master's. And
right, yeah.
So it really opens up the kinds of jobs you can do.
For sure. So it's in pursuit of sort of like that, like a later goal like that.
Yeah.
Like any particular one, or more like it's just like the kind of jobs that it sort of opens up, right? In like social work in particular, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely like to work with queer and trans folks. I've been thinking a lot about how there's, with boomers and everything, going to be this like aging population of queer and trans seniors who are going to have like medical and social and whatever needs that a lot of systems aren't going to be prepared for. So I'm like, maybe that's my career path. But I don't know yet. I don't really have a history with that kind of work, so I think a lot of what I've done in sex toy world translates.
Sure.
Because it's a lot of having like non-judgmental conversations about people's deepest traumas.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember you posting about that once, but that's like the biggest thing about it is like you just have these like intensely emotional conversations next to the 10-inch dildo and whatever.
Yeah.
That's the place. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Where else can you be that frank?
Yeah, people come in and I'm like, oh, how's it going? This is, a few years ago now, but like, how's it going? And they're like, here is my pain.
How can sex toys fix my pain? And you're like,
yeah. Oh, honey. And it was a lot of, like, I've never told anyone this before. Like, my partner doesn't know this. It was like, people really open up to you in that space.
For sure.
So, but regardless, I don't have a social work background. So I'm in part, I'm like, I gotta go to school and like do some things and figure out which direction I want to go with it, because there are a lot of different ways you can go.
Definitely. Yeah. And I figured, like, you sort of have an idea, but yeah, it could end up in many places that you're kind of okay with. Yeah, I've sort of thought about similar things, because I'm considering going to grad school, and I have a couple years to sort of figure out if I want to or not. And yeah, so like one thing I've considered, is like psychology for that exact reason, is being like a therapist.
Nice.
Especially because like I have a therapist right now who is like sort of, I don't know if he like specializes in trans people necessarily, or if it's just like because he's based in West Hollywood and like is just sort of trans accepting that he like that's a big thing. But yeah, just having that is just so good and so nice. Like, it's just really funny too having somebody like when I would go down there, we would walk from his hallway to the elevator, and like he'd always give me some random fact like, oh, did you hear about Janet Mock's new book? And I'm like, okay. Like, no, I haven't.
He's like plugged in.
Yeah. He would sometimes give me updates on like Caitlyn Jenner, for example.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, it was relevant a while ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's this desire of wanting to like be, now we're at this point, right, where we have that perspective where we can see sort of where a lot of the weaknesses are and what people need, and it's really appealing to want to, like, social work is pretty good, and especially like, again, I wouldn't say this is something I will do, but, like, as someone also who, in, like, a queer relationship who, like, wants to adopt eventually, like, possibly.
Me too.
Yeah. It's, like, that's, like, probably the first thing I would probably want to look for is, like, a queer-friendly social worker.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's this, I didn't think about this, because this is something far in the future, if it happens, but, like, I just realized, like, in a lot of places, that's still, like, disqualifying, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Like, you can't even be a parent. Like, literally, we're told we're supposed to do 3 things, and they lock one of them off for queer people. You know?
Yeah.
Just, like, yeah, maintaining that marginalization, basically, because, like, at the end of the day, you know, queerness is one of those axes. Basically, because it's not race, like, people can kind of relate to it.
Oh,
anyway.
Yeah, it's honestly, you know, and we weren't, like, visibly a queer couple before recently, but, like, one of the reasons that my partner and I are getting married now is because we're like, oh, and then in a couple of years, we're going to be looking at, like, fostering and adopting, and, like, I have heard that it, like, looks good if you've been married for a minute. So.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, we also want to get married to each other. But, like, you know, we also like each other a lot. But, like, a big part of the discussion and sort of why it was like, well, this is our timeline is, like, we'll give ourselves, like, a couple-year buffer to be, like, respectable.
Right. Yeah. Like, oh, here's my proof of stability.
Exactly.
My marriage license signed 2 years ago.
Exactly.
Damn.
Haven't divorced yet.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but that is so true. Yeah, where, like, before it might be more, or like, if circumstances were different, yeah, it might be, like, those two like, questions of children and marriage might be 2 totally separate questions, but because of having to fit those expectations, so, like, there's still, like, it's, like, feels like it's getting to, like, minimal, but then again, yeah, if just being, like, 2 people perceived as men or 2 people perceived as women, like, trying to adopt, and that's enough, like, it's hard to define. It's, like, really... I
mean, we are in LA, though, so...
Exactly. No, we're in LA and
like,
California,
this is definitely a place where...
Yes.
You can be in a visibly queer relationship and
I've been to a gay wedding.
Which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a couple folks who are in that process right now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Well, yeah. Damn.
Real, like, big and scary and exciting.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, again, more relatable things of just, like, being in your 30s. You know, it's like, I've wanted to take on more responsibility, and I've gotten really perverted. You know? Those have gone kind of hand in hand. But yeah,
beautiful.
That's my 30s in a nutshell.
Oh my gosh, can I ask you a, like, question about transition?
Of course, yeah, ask away.
Which is,
anything
like,
you want.
a thing that I've been feeling, that I've been sort of what's felt like a point where I'm getting stuck is, I just, like, feel too old to go through puberty again. Just, like, I'm 30-fucking-3. Like,
right.
I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And, like, also on some level I want to have done it. But, I'm just, like, you know, I talk to friends and I read stuff and people are like, oh yeah, I mean, you know, you spend a couple years being, like, smelly and horny, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah. And you're like, I remember being 11 and now I have to deal with it as in my 30s. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I've, like, just barely gotten my skin under control in my 30s.
Oh god, yes. And yeah, tea fucks your skin right up.
Yep.
Oh my god, yeah, my ex who had the experience of meeting me and was like, oh, I can be trans. And so while we were dating, they started taking testosterone, and yeah, like, that was one of the most immediate things. It's just like, just acne and sweat and yeah, getting really horny and aggressive. Like, it's a really good time to take up a hobby like football or, like, martial arts, like something where you, like, just get a lot of aggression out, or a lot of physical activity, or, like, even running, I guess, would work too. Just, like, anything like that, because, like, that's sort of a common theme I've noticed as someone who's gone through both puberties. Oh gosh, yeah. So the testosterone puberty as a kid, and then estrogen puberty, unfortunately now, for a second time, because I went off for a year.
Oh, Christ.
So I'm in, like, a weird third puberty, although it hasn't been that way, really. It's been much more, like going off of hormones after being on them for a few years felt like going through menopause. It had I went through a lot of things they describe as like menopause, like heat flashes, and like I was running hot all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was really wild. Yeah, it's really intense, especially because, like, I guess it is, like, replicating how folks go through menopause. I just probably had more testosterone in my system than a normal, like, 50-something or 60-something cis woman. But yeah, it is a big factor. Like, it's hard. It's hard for that reason. Because, you know, going through that puberty, especially, you know, you're a little more stable. I was in a very unstable place when I first started taking hormones, and that definitely didn't help. It was definitely part of it where, like, I was also living with, like, a literal teenager at the time, too, so, like, that was not, yeah. And we were, like, I was in a motel with my best friend and her 2 partners. It was just not good.
Oh.
And that's, yeah, and so I'm, like, going through a second puberty, and I'm, like, 26, and I'm just, like, yeah, sad and horny all the time, and, like, suddenly crying, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, there's a lot of things to sort of expect, and yeah, it takes a while to sort of get used to it, but yeah, it's indescribable, you know, how it feels. Like, you know, that's why the word dysphoria and euphoria, that dichotomy is kind of useful, because it's like, because yeah, it's not like, for me, dysphoria is not like some active, like, gnawing pain. It's more just like, when I start being on hormones longer, like, once I hit maybe a year, I've only been on it for maybe 6-7 months. Once I've been on it for like a year or a year and a half, like, it just starts feeling more right. It's just sort of like, oh, I just feel better in my body, because it changes your skin, you know, your smell changes very quickly, actually.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it's really fascinating, the stuff that changes. And yeah, and testosterone's really intense too, so you notice really intense changes really quickly.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever heard of Adam Rowland?
No.
So Adam Rowland is this queer, like, folk punk singer.
Cool.
Who was around in, like, the late 2000s. Yeah, you really like them. And yeah, they started transitioning during, like, their 3rd album, or, yeah, something like that. And so at the end of the album, they had this, like, 9-month voice tracker of, like, how much their voice changed. Because, yeah, if you listen to the previous album before they came out, you know, sounds sort of what you might define as, like, a sort of stereotype, like, what you think of, like, a feminine voice. And then, like, you hear this, like, very deep, like, you hear that sort of pubescent twinge, too. Like, that, you know, of, like, 9 months on T. You know, it's, like, a huge difference. But, again, like, only 9 months, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, unfortunately, too, the permanent changes with testosterone are much more noticeable than on estrogen.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, growing breasts, for me, for example, was not noticeable and helped me pass more while I was off of it, while, like, your voice changing and, like, the hair you grow, you know, isn't quite as much. So, yeah, it's a difficult one, but...
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't have to decide right now, but also, like,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's a thing that I think about.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a good thing. Again, since we're here in LA as well, I get as a lot of people do. I get my medical care from the LGBT Center.
Nice.
Excuse me. So yeah, there are resources out there where, like, yeah, you can get doctors to sort of help you go do it, because that's the way to do it as well.
Yeah.
So you can get checkups and whatnot, because, yeah, it's just a really intense process that no one should really go through alone. And it's unfortunate that it's so heavily regulated in some places that people have to illegally get their hormones, but if you have the option, I highly recommend just getting a doctor and helping you through it.
Yes. No, I have a new doctor. I really hated my medical group before, so I have an appointment with my new doctor for just some unrelated stuff.
Yeah.
At the end of the month, I'm very excited, and because I'm on an HMO, I'm just going to be like, here are the referrals that I want. And one of them is to an endocrinologist for, like, honestly unrelated health reasons.
Sure.
I've just been having, like, hormones have been ruining my life.
Right.
So I've been just, like, entertaining this little fantasy of, like, what if I had to go on testosterone for my health?
I love it. Oh my god, it's so funny.
It's out of my control.
Right, yeah. No, that's so... Yeah, is that interesting where, like, those kind of things allow you to, like, think about it, and it's, like, really enjoy the idea. It's like, oh, yeah, like, you can think about how much you enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know? And just how funny it is.
Without being like, are you making the right decision? Like,
Right.
this is going to mean permanent changes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the kind of thing, too, where, like, you hit a point where you're like, no, I realize that these are permanent changes, but, like, I, like, can't live in my body anymore, you know? It's like, I think I might quote this every time now, unfortunately. It might get into every episode, but a great quote from a early Grey's Anatomy episode about this, where, you know, I'd rather die as a woman than live as a man, and I couldn't disagree, I couldn't agree more, you know? Like, that's exactly how it feels. If it came down to it, you know, that's where it would be. It's like, but for me, again, like, because of, like, the hormone thing, that's not dependent for me on my, again, I was no less of a woman the year I was off hormones.
Sure, yeah.
Than when I was, just
Yes.
not passing as well. And unfortunately, too, because of the effects of testosterone, having, like, now I have the effects of going through it in my 30s rather than going through it in my 20s, so it's definitely... I'm feeling some of those effects that a lot of older trans folks talk about. So, like, I want to get, like, electrolysis or, like, laser hair removal in my face, for example, because that's, like, where a lot of my social sort of dysphoria comes from, and where a lot of people perceive me, you know, that's one of the secondary sexual characteristics, which is how people gender people, you know, basically. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know if we can come to a conclusion to all this, but the world is pretty shitty, but but if you can find, like, supportive people, it's a lot less shitty.
Friends are good.
Friends are awesome. Friendship is magic.
Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to, like, plug? Anything upcoming, any events that you'd like to coming up in, like...
I have something coming up this summer. It might be too far in advance, but
no, that sounds perfect.
I wrote a non-autobiographical solo show, based loosely on when I used to teach sex classes at Pleasure Chest.
Okay.
And it's a character who's teaching a sex ed class, teaching a, like, spicing up your sex life for couples class, like, having just gone through a breakup and is unraveling in real time. I think it's very funny. It's called Spice Up Your Sex Life Till It Burns, and it's going to be at the Broadwater Black Box at Hollywood Fringe.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I hope to go see that, and yeah, get your tickets to that. I'll try to link it at some point.
Yeah,
if there gets to be stuff like that. Yeah, that sounds great.
There's also a possibility, and I have no more info about this,
okay,
because the person putting it together is super, like, busy freelancing. But if it all comes together this summer, I might be playing Ross in an episodic all queer friends live situation.
I want to see this. I love to hate Friends.
Yeah.
And I love this turning on its head.
Yeah, we had one reading for it a couple months ago, and it was so fun.
So
and I just
good.
really wanted to happen because
so good.
It was a riot, and I need to get a lot of big sweaters to wear.
Yes. Oh, good. You know, I can see it too. Yeah, I can picture you with the greasy hair as well. Yeah, I think you'll do a good Ross. Awesome.
Just need to, like, get my flopping on furniture technique down.
Right. Yeah. And your quote unquote man spreading down as well. I noticed that they do that a lot in the show as well. It's really funny to see Chandler and Joey sitting next to each other because their knees are touching. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, well, I'll hopefully talk to you again later.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for listening to this episode of Gender Non-Conforming Chat on Chaos Public Radio. I am Mary Jane Blank. Follow me on Twitter at mjblank666. I'd just like to give a special thanks to Theo Motzenbacker for talking to me, and again to Lily Ashton / Mothcub for making our beautiful logo. Please go support her on Patreon / Mothcub, Ko-fi / Mothcub, follow her on Twitter / CubMoth. which is confusing. But anyway, and please, if you enjoyed this and want to hear more similar content, consider supporting us on patreon.com/chaospublicradio or Ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/chaospublicradio. And for more updates, follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Chaos Radio Cast. Thank you once again, and I hope that you'll return to us next week. Bleh.